Welcome to your Friday morning gaming news and talk show live service, ever changing, just like the gaming industry is. You never know what you're going to get. Could be good, could be bad, but guess what? You're here for the long haul. I am your host, Guns. And boy, do we have a show for you this morning. If you are out of the loop, the Game Awards happened last night, and boy, was it interesting. Jeff Keighley kind of, I wouldn't say refusing, but just not speaking on the mass arbitration and layoffs that happened in the video game industry recently, and also cutting people off in insanely short intervals, not giving them more than 30 seconds for an acceptance speech, which I thought was pretty rude in general, but all in all, I thought the Game Awards was pretty good. Well, here's the thing. He can't really talk about the mass layoffs because the majority of the people that are sponsoring his show are probably laying off employees as they speak, or thinking about it. But the full list of winners can be found on several websites. Pick your favorite. IGN certainly isn't mine. It was just the first one in the Google search results. I don't agree with most of IGN's reviews anyway. Baldur's Gate very deservedly won Game of the Year. Spider-Man 2 was nominated for 7 categories and won a total of 0 of them. The Legend of Zelda was also nominated for several categories and won a total of 0 of them. I actually think that Zelda was snubbed in a few senses. Maybe best music, I think, but you could have easily given best music to Alan Wake as well. Ironically, Final Fantasy XVI won best music. I don't really agree with that, but it did win. Hi-Fi Rush won the best audio. I can agree with that one pretty easily. Best performance was Neil Newbon for Astarion and Baldur's Gate 3, and of course, Game of the Year was Baldur's Gate 3. Best game direction, Alan Wake 2. Best narrative, Alan Wake 2. Best art direction, Alan Wake 2. All very deservedly. So here's the thing. I don't think Spider-Man 2 was snubbed. Spider-Man 2 is not a very good game. If you take away the Spider-Man appeal of it, it's not much different or better than the first Spider-Man. It's just more of the same. And there's nothing I loathe more than sequelitis of sequels that don't really innovate or create anything new or interesting. And no, cutscenes with quick time events aren't new or interesting. I'm talking about gameplay and player choice. And Baldur's Gate 3 embodied that more than anything. And if you want to talk about good narrative storytelling, Alan Wake 2 did that better than I think Baldur's Gate did, which is why it won Best Narrative and Best Game Direction. Alan Wake 2 seamlessly wove the story into the gameplay and made it incredibly unique. Games for Impact Ticha won. Best Ongoing Game Cyberpunk won. I don't know if I actually agree with that. But they have had so many patches to get to 2.0 this year that, maybe they do fit the category. Best Indie Game, Sea of Stars won, which is great. Best Debut Indie, Cocoon won. Best Mobile Game, Honky Star. I can't stand Honkai Star Rail. I can't stand Hoyoverse. I was like, ooh, Genshin Impact's kind of okay, and then it just became a Gotcha Impact. And now we have Honkai, Gotcha Rail, and then we're gonna get the ZZZ, which is gonna be more Gotcha. Best Community Support, Baldur's Gate 3. Best AR VR game, Resident Evil Village. Innovation and accessibility is Forza Motorsport. A lot of people didn't understand this one. I totally get it. You could be blind and race in Forza Motorsport because the game actually has things you could. It will vibrate to your controller to let you know, like, oh, you're hitting the curb. It will do the steering for you, the braking for you. Like, the accessibility options inside Forza are insane, and I actually completely agree with it getting innovation and accessibility. I don't agree with it getting the best sports racing game because it just wasn't a very good one, and honestly, I voted Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 for the memes, but here we are. Best RPG, Baldur's Gate 3. Best action adventure game, Tears of the Kingdom. it had to get something. I mean, best action game, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, best fighting game, Street Fighter 6, best family game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and then esports categories, best multiplayer, Baldur's Gate 3. I actually agree with that too, because the game fundamentally changes when you play with other people, funny enough. And then you get into esports and creators, and I don't care about any of that stuff. Yeah, I think the awards. So here's the thing with everyone saying like, "Ooh, Spider-Man got snubbed, blah blah blah. Why didn't it win anything?" If Alan Wake 2, Legend of Zelda, Baldur's Gate 3, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder did not come out this year, or actually Final Fantasy 16, if those games, Lies of P, if those games did not come out this year, then I could maybe see Marvel Spider-Man win Game of the Year. But especially in comparison to Baldur's Gate 3 and Alan Wake 2, those are like supreme games of the decade. Those are games that, like, especially Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is a once-in-a-lifetime game. Marvel Spider-Man may show up on a top 500 list of all-time video games. Baldur's Gate 3 will show up on a top 5 list of all-time video games ever. That is how good and impactful Baldur's Gate 3 is and was from Larian. It showed us that no, games can still be good, player choice can still matter, you can still do all of that, and you know. So yeah, that was the Game Awards. I actually encourage you to go watch the VOD of one of your favorite content creators, or just the VOD in general. It was a very interesting story or a very interesting night, and there were 1,000,001 announcements, starting with the finals. The finals shadow dropped last night. You can go play it right now. It's on Steam. It is free to play. It is actually pretty good. I was playing it a little bit this morning. Liked it quite a bit. Monster Hunter Wilds was revealed for 2025. It looks fantastic. I'm super excited for it. I can't wait. The trailer speaks for itself. The technology behind it looks insane. I can't wait. Baldur's Gate 3, speaking of which, shadow dropped on the Xbox Series S and X last night, so everyone has it available. Hello Games teased their new game, Light No Fire. It is not a sequel to No Man's Sky, but perhaps a prequel, especially if you look at the iconography of the main emblem of the game. It looks very similar to No Man's Sky emblem, but it is a singular world, full-scaled, exploration-based fantasy game. And I am actually far more interested in this than I am in No Man's Sky. The combat looks much better. The generational tech that they are using here looks phenomenal. I can't wait. The makers of GTFO not only announced the final rundown last night, but they also announced their new heist game, The Den of Wolves. It looked really interesting, and I encourage you to go watch it. I don't fully understand it, but I am on board. Arcane Studios surprised and delighted everyone last night, announcing not Dishonored 3, but Blade. Dishonored, or Arcane Studios, the makers of Dishonored, is making Marvel's Blade. It is apparently set in France, in Paris. People are speculating that it is going to focus on taking down Dracula in a modernized setting. It is going to be a third-person action-based game. Up next, Hideo Kojima is making a new game with Jordan Peele. He's helping writing on it. It is called OD, not Odd. Some people think OD stands for obviously different or something else like that. It is going to be a horror game that I think is going to have some kind of psychological element to it. The trailer has people reading a say phrase, which is something that you read that then allows AI or whatever to basically repeat back everything you're saying or make a, a facsimilation of your voice, which I thought was fairly interesting, but we'll have to see what comes out of that. I imagine that's quite a ways away. Former Rockstar developers are making The Last Sentinel. It is a new AAA game that is Neo Tokyo cyberpunk looking vibes. It's a Tencent owned developer, which is, I don't know, depends how you feel on that. But other good news, Sega is returning some of its best games with remakes. The list below included Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Crazy Taxi, and more. No information or announcement was given on the days, and it wasn't made clear whether these were entire remakes or sequels, but they were modernizations of those famous Sega games that everyone looked after. And that's all the big news that came out of the Game Awards, but we are not done. There is more news to get to, starting with the day before. Now, I wanted this game to be real, and it turns out it is real. Now I wish it wasn't real, and I actually wish it was just, I wish it was just, in fact, vaporware, because it being real is almost worse than it being fake. The day before released yesterday, Thursday, on the same day that the Game Awards came out, and it is, in fact, not a open world MMO. It is, in fact, an extraction shooter. And nobody is happy about it. The community is up in arms about it. The Discord has turned into a shit show. This article says that the Discord has been shut down. That's not necessarily true. They have more or less left the Discord and have no support over it. Despite a statement from the developer denying it was a scam, the server shutdown was necessary to manage the overwhelming toxicity and promised a patch to address the issue with no set timeline. Yeah, so it's an extraction shooter, but with no time limit. It's, it has, if you haven't played it, I actually encourage you to go look at some gameplay of it. The gunplay is incredibly bad, feels incredibly bad, looks incredibly bad. The game is filled with a massive amount of bugs. It is an extraction shooter, but without a timer. The map is a $300 Unreal store asset that you could buy, that anyone could go buy. The developers only made maybe like a third of the assets that are in the game, most of which are the players you see running around. The zombies came from somewhere else. A lot of the screen menu actions, it is a giant scam is what it is, and it's insane. Now, the developer, Fantastic, is known for making a game and then abandoning it. They, I believe it was the Crazy 8, something 8. It was a top-down survival-esque game. They made and abandoned that. Then there was Prop Night. They made and abandoned that. Currently, the day before is sitting at overwhelmingly negative. 16% of the 12,855 users for this game are positive. There are features missing from the game. I mean, it is just an absolutely terrible shit show. Thankfully, I did not buy the game. Oh yeah, things like cars and like this zone. This zone doesn't exist in the game, by the way. There's so much that just doesn't exist or is completely pointless in the game. It is crazy. But anyway, it is a vastly interesting shit show that I actually encourage you to go look up. I don't encourage you to buy it. I actually encourage you to stay as far away from it as you possibly can. It does not deserve the purchase price of the $40 that it is asking for. And honestly, these developers deserve to die into obscurity. They are South Korean con artists to the extreme. And it is unfortunate because it's a promising concept. Maybe somebody else can take that concept and come along and do it properly. It is clear people want an open world survival game in a city with zombies. We just may never get one. All right. That is a lot of the big angry news. The day before, or not the day before, Skull and Bones got a release date this time. Let's see if it's true. The release date is set to launch February 16th, 2024. I have no idea if we're actually going to see the game come out then. This is like the 5th release date that it's gotten. So we'll see. It'll be interesting nonetheless. The trailer makes it somehow seem cool, but please, again, the day before, don't pre-order games. People, stop pre-ordering games. Please, for the love of God, stop pre-ordering games. These games don't deserve your money. But the last bit of interesting, bad, or horrible news that we have to talk about is the atmosphere at Bungie. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about it. It is not a pleasant thing, and it is amid a huge number of other layoffs in the industry currently. There were 100 developers let go recently from Bungie. And the chief officer person at Bungie, yes, it's an actual title, said laying off people is absolutely a lever the company will pull again because Bungie has to meet a certain quota in order to remain independent. So the more shocking thing to me is that Bungie signed this deal. And give me just a moment here. I'm going to pull up some other. Let's see. So presently, Bungie's board is CEO Pete Parsons, co-founder Jason Jones, CTO Luis Villegas, and PlayStation studio head Herman Hulst, and Sony senior vice president Eric Lapel. NetEase Simon Zhu, which helped Bungie gain independence from Activision, is believed to have left following the acquisition. So NetEase had purchased $100 million percentage into Bungie. And a lot of people attribute some of the negative things that have come out of Bungie in the last 4 or 5 years to the NetEase board chair. but they're gone now. Sony bought them out with their $3.4 billion acquisition and bought 2 of the 5 seats on the board. Pete Parsons is the deciding vote. The potential takeover is what spurred on the October layoffs. That's what sources also claim, that Bungie has enacted further cost-cutting measures. Current staff members confirmed a hiring freeze at the studio, and that several benefits like holiday bonuses and reduced travel benefits have been scaled back or wholly eliminated. Morale at Bungie is said to be soul-crushing over the last month, not helped by the alleged indifference from management. Leadership reportedly told multiple employees that further layoffs may still be possible, an additional 100, depending entirely on the performance of the final shape. Employees recalled how they asked leadership if they were taking pay cuts to prevent layoffs, the response to which was that Bungie is not that kind of company. However, that leadership is allegedly a company that heaped additional responsibilities on outsourced QA testers and became increasingly hostile towards them within the last year. Workloads for QA staff has increased at the same time management once referred to the team as meeting as non-developers. So, okay. You remember that there was that 45% sales expectation number that Bungie didn't hit some time ago, right? That was the number that Bungie was supposed to hit. And if Bungie didn't get to certain revenue goals by the end of the physical year, Sony is allowed to dissolve the board at Bungie and take the company over. That's fucking hilarious to me, because Bungie went to Microsoft and prospered, and then had enough money to actually buy themselves back, and then went to Activision and failed, and left Activision, blamed Activision for their failures, and then went to Sony, or failed on their own for a while, and now they went to Sony and they are failing again. And there is a real possibility that Bungie could be absorbed into Sony entirely, and the board will lose all of its power. So the board of directors at Bungie makes all the decisions currently. The contract that Bungie signed with Sony is that Bungie gets to be maintained as an independent studio and property that is owned by Bungie. For $3.4 billion, they are essentially still independent, which you would think, wow, that's stupid of Sony to sign. Well, apparently Sony got Bungie to agree to some outlandish revenue targets, and that if they did not hit those revenue targets, that Bungie would have to absolve the board and Sony would take it over and then make the leadership decisions from now on, owning the entirety of the company and probably transferring all of the original IP, the intellectual property that Bungie has, also to Sony, which they would gobble it the fuck up and then spread it out to other studios, make a couple of shitty movies out of it, because Sony doesn't make any good movies anymore, and do whatever else they want. I mean, just think about it. For Sony properties to make good movies or TV shows, they had to go to HBO to make The Last of Us, which is fucking hilarious to me. Sony didn't do that, HBO did. Wonder why. So, there is actually a real possibility that the board is completely dissolved and that Bungie will be permanently a part of Sony, or that Bungie could be dissolved entirely. A lot of people are blaming, so apparently Bungie was in financial trouble. A lot of people are blaming the fact that Pete Parsons and the board of directors wanted a new big fancy office in Bellevue, Washington. They wanted their own built office, and it is apparently incredibly expensive. The land, the sources, the size, everything is just incredibly expensive. And a lot of people point to it as a multi-million-dollar money sink that was completely unnecessary. To me, it sounds like Pete Parsons and the board of directors wanted some big fancy offices and a big building that their eyes were far bigger than their old man I want a big fancy corner office because I deserve it. And unfortunately, the company could not afford what they think they deserve. I just, here's my opinion on this. There's a lot more information you could go look up about this with Bungie and whatnot. I'm going to play the final shape. I'm buying the $40 edition because I want to see the story through. I've put 9 years into this so far. I want to see how they end it. And then once I'm done with that raid, once I have killed that witness the final time, I'm uninstalling that game. I'm never putting money back into it again. I don't care what they say or what they do. Unless there are some absolutely crazy turnarounds 10 years later, I'll probably never touch Destiny again or another Bungie product for that matter. I won't say that. If Marathon looks good, I may touch Marathon, but I'm going to be hesitant about putting money into any Bungie product ever again. And I actually encourage other people to do the same. And not just for Bungie, be hesitant to spend your money on any of these developers. Like people that buy Call of Duty every year, stop. This is how we got Modern Warfare 3. Because you pre-order and you don't think, like, is my purchase good for myself? And the reality is, if you're purchasing something that's really crappy and terrible, no, it's not. Kind of like, look at it like purchasing a car. Would you spend your $30,000 on a car that people say, oh, it's actually worth like $8,000, maybe even $6,000. It's not really worth that much, but you spent $30,000 on it. Would you spend $30,000 on the same brand of car the next year? No, and you would say, well, because it's an important decision. It's what I get. I use it all the time. I go to from it. My car is very important to me. Your entertainment is very important to you as well. This is how you de-stress. This is how you enjoy yourself. So take 5 minutes to think about, should I purchase this or not? Will it be good for my future purchasing decisions? And then get the things that you think are higher quality that will give you fun. Go get Baldur's Gate. If you want a shooter, go get Remnant 2. Or BattleBit Remastered. There's a number, or Ready or Not, there's a number of alternatives and interesting games coming out recently other than Call of Duty that you can go play. I encourage you to do so. And people would say, oh, so you don't want to support the studio, that means they're going to fall and die. Yes, it does. And those 1,100 other employees that work at Bungie, they are all very talented people. They will have a very prestigious mark on their record that says, I used to work for Bungie. They will not have difficulty finding jobs inside the gaming industry or as programmers or inside other industries of whatever they would like to do. These people have great resumes, great skills to find other jobs. In total, finding jobs right now is hard. I'm not going to pretend like it's easy for anybody, but they will be able to go places very quickly, more so than other people, and they'll be okay. They're also fairly intelligent people. I would encourage them to start looking for a new job now. Try to go somewhere else right now. Because the reality is, you could be on the chopping block 6 months from now when Lightfall doesn't, or the final shape doesn't sell well. You say, oh, we should support them so they don't lay them off. If it doesn't get enough support, which is just going to be down to whether it was good or not, they're going to cut them anyway. To meet those financial quotas, they're going to cut them anyway. So I recommend don't support Bungie. The company as it was died about 6 months ago when Sony purchased them. Sony's in control now. And some people will say a Sony controlled Bungie will be a better thing. I don't think so. Sony is doing a lot of incredibly aggressive anti-consumer things right now. Just look at the new PlayStation Slim. It's the slim version of the same model, but it costs $50 more. Why is that? That seems ridiculous. But it's here. So yeah, don't support Sony, don't support Bungie as much as you can right now. I know it's difficult, especially if you have a PlayStation console. But this is an end of an era. I think we are seeing the end of Bungie. This is kind of it, you know? Not a lot we can do, unfortunately. This happens. Studios rise and studios fall. Here's the thing, is that studios are made out of people, and people make mistakes. They aren't bulletproof no matter what you think or hope. Eventually they will fail. And that is the sad, unfortunate truth. A studio that lasts more than a decade or 2 decades is an icon. And Bungie is an icon. But, you know, unless they're owned by some mega conglomerate or corporation, they tend to fail because people make bad choices. The exceptions to these would be Bethesda and man, the CDPR has been around for a long time. There's not a lot of studios that have been around very long periods of time independently. Larian Studios, you know, it's a short list because they often fail and these people go somewhere else. As Adam Savage once said, everything has a bell curve. The start, the middle, and the end. The bell curve changes depending on the people, the place, and the situation, but everything has a bell curve. This is just Bungie's. It is unfortunate. I don't like it. I grew up on Halo, but I recognize and accept that the Bungie that is making Destiny today is not the Bungie that made Halo. The Bungie that is making Destiny today is not even the Bungie that made Destiny 1 8-9 years ago. So, help those people find new jobs, get them out of those positions. There's no point in prolonging the suffering of themselves and their interesting. And you're saying, well, why should they try to look? They're not safe there as a job. They've already stated they will lay off more people if they don't meet financial targets. These people are in crippling, mentally decapitating jobs in which they are in a soul-crushing atmosphere, as they say, fearing more layoffs, cuts of all kinds of benefits for employees, and they are in fear of a leadership change that will shake the entire foundation of their company. If you know somebody at Bungie, encourage them to find another job right now. All right. That's a depressing note to end live service on, but we are there. Haha! I am going to probably go play some of the finals because that game looks fun as fuck. Thank you for enjoying this live service. Remember, the news is the news with my opinions mixed into it. Opinions are opinions. Not everyone's going to like or agree upon them. What are your opinions of what we talked about today? What do you think's the right thing for a Bungie employee to do right now? What do you think's the right thing for a consumer of Bungie products to do at this moment? And what was your favorite thing, favorite release, or announcement from the Game Awards last night? Thank you guys for watching. I will see you next week, Friday morning, for some more live service. Have a good night, everybody.